Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am super excited to introduce you to today's digital event with ArchVision, where we are hosting our first partnered event with Lumion. Today is focused on the next-gen design collaboration inside Lumion's evolving ecosystem. My name is Kelsey Colvenshaw. I am the Sales Operations Manager here at ArchVision, and I'm joined today by David Weir-McCall. He is the head of production at Lumion. David leads the company's expanding ecosystem of visualization tools, transforming how architects design, collaborate, and communicate. With a background in architecture and over a decade of experience in real-time rendering technologies, David has driven scalable software solutions and digital transformation across the AEC sector. His work focuses on customer-centric innovation and pushes the limits of real-time visualization to bridge the gap between designers, clients, and end users, bringing projects to life long before they're built. We are very excited again, like I said, to have our first event with Lumion. And just a little bit about today before I do turn it over to David. We will have the chat open. Please feel free to put any questions throughout the event in there. We will try our best to get to all of them during the Q&A at the end. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to David.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the nice introduction. It's very nice. I'll share my screen and I'll get started. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to join this webinar. I hope I've got lots of cool things to share with you guys. You know, one of the joys of working with a visualization company is we usually do some very visually compelling presentations. So at least I hope to deliver that. So the first step is I'll quickly share my screen and get the presentation underway, but I'll also be trying my best to keep an eye on the chat should there be anything that pop up. But I am told we're going to do a really nice Q&A session at the end. So keep those questions coming in and I'll happily answer them at the very end. So as it was explained, you know, today we're going to be talking a little bit more about Lumion's evolving ecosystem. And there's lots of changes that have happened within the organization. So maybe you guys have heard of Lumion before, maybe you're using Lumion. I think, you know, now is just such a great time because as an organization, we've grown so much that we just want to reset what you think you know and kind of set that new direction. So really fun stuff, but quickly, you know, super high level about me. You know, as my great intro kind of explains, I am very familiar with sitting on the other side of the screen. I was in architecture for the best part of a decade, working with a Canadian company called Nor and then moving into Arcadis. But then I've also been on a slightly different side of the table because I worked with Epic Games for about 4 or 5 years. Helping them grow and expand their real-time market around Unreal Engine and Twinmotion. So between that and where we are at now, you know, I've always had this passion for visualization. You know, I always saw value in it whenever I was an architect, and now it's amazing. It's the dream job of actually helping shape and sculpt the future of visualization within Lumion. So that's a little bit about where I've come from, and you know, I'll start very corporate. So apologies. I have mission statements. Who doesn't love a hot mission statement? Our goal is really to help make design communication effortless across every stage, every discipline, and every audience across the AEC. Now, this is super bold and ambitious, you know, mission statements generally are. And often at times we ask ourselves, how are we doing along this journey? And if you'd looked at us maybe even just 1 year ago, this was our ecosystem. We had this Lumion Pro, our flagship product. It's our storytelling visualization tool. And if you were to look at us today, we look very different. We now have 2 additional products in our ecosystem. And so today, what I really want to do is do a bit more of a deep dive into each one of these and explain the kind of overall product direction of where we're going and give you guys a little bit of a taste both into the roadmap of things that we're doing with these applications, but also just a little bit of background history on why we're doing it, and again, where we see it kind of leading into the next few years. But before I kind of do that, I want to just correct myself a little bit. I've talked a lot about visualization, having a passion for it. The first correction I want to make is, it's not actually about visualization. It's actually about communication. This is quite an interesting statement for a visualization company to come out and say, but what was really apparent to us, very early on, whenever we started looking at the industry, is that the visual communication side of where the industry works and where you guys work is just such an interesting spectrum of ways of communication. And you get it across the board from drawings and markups to hand sketches to diagrams to photoreal renders. There is no real one way of visualizing anything. And what has also become more apparent is the visual communication style and requirements is really unique to every decision that's made and every new RFI that comes in, every question or query that you need to quickly explain. And we really sort of saw that as this kind of big problem or challenge that the industry faces. It's just this big spectrum of communication needs. And we know it's a problem. There was a great report done by PlanGrid in 2018 that kind of talked about, how 52% of all rework in the construction process is due to miscommunication or bad data. Costs the industry, 177 billion euros. I'm sure that converts to dollars, something quite equally horrific. And 25% of project costs are errors when indirects get involved. So we know this is a problem, but whenever you dive into the report a little bit deeper, what you start to hit on is the fact that rework is mostly caused by misunderstanding, not missing detail. Now, why is this important? Well, detail is something that our CAD and our BIM providers are doing amazingly well. The likes of Graphisoft, the likes of Autodesk, this is really their core focus. Improved transparency and communication around improved data and improved details. But where Lumion can start to help a little bit more is around bridging that understanding. Because we believe that visual communication is this universal language of the future. It's the communication method that transcends languages, it transcends geographies, and in some essence, it even transcends generations. Because the younger generation are coming up very quickly behind us. They've learned in this kind of 3D visual space. They understand it a lot more than really we ever could. But then whenever we look at the process for visual communication, there's lots of issues. We see that it's very fragmented. You guys are using handfuls of tools in order to communicate those different ways. Export out of this application, import into this application, export out of that application, try and share it with the client. So it's really fragmented. It's really disconnected. With the second you leave the CAD and BIM models, you're instantly out of date. And it's also isolated in a way that we are really looking at collaboration. So these are the challenges. This is the kind of core direction, and this is where we see our ecosystem evolving forward and moving forward. This unified, fully connected, and very collaborative pipeline that really always ties back to where you work within your design tools. So that's the introduction. And what I would love to spend, the next little while doing is, I'll go into each one of these products and talk about them in their own way, what they do. Some of them you might be familiar with, and some of them may be very new to you. But let's dive in and see how all these tools are really answering those problems around visual communication, around fragmented, disconnected, and isolation. And we'll start actually with Lumion View. Lumion View is the latest, or one of the latest, or new additions to the family. Lumion View came out, I think, around about March, April time in the early beta. And its core focus is really around this visual communication niche that we talked about. So its style and kind of visualization of where it's working is really focused on a slightly different angle than maybe Lumion Pro, or the D5s or the Twin Motions of the world. But the idea really for View was born on this foundational layer of really looking at the blockers of adopting visual tools within your industry. Whenever we look at the likes of Twinmotion D5 and Lumion Pro, we asked our customers and our audiences, why, there's clear value in visualization, so why are they not more present across the entire organization? And one of them is product complexity. These products are hugely complex, and they can do an awful lot, and sometimes you just don't need them to do that whole host of complex items. There's also high cost, of which we're just as guilty on that. Whenever you're rolling this out to an entire office, costs play a huge part. The learning curve. One thing that we know is you guys do not have the time to be learning software, as becoming masters of software. And then finally, hardware dependency, linked a little bit into cost as well. The cost of the CAD application, the cost of the software, and the hardware on top of that kind of just confounds this problem. So we know visualization is important. We know you guys want to get your hands on it. So our foundational layer for Lumion View is really built around this idea of an affordable, very focused, super simple application that, even your 60-year-old, almost retired architects can jump in and get the things they need out of it, and super accessible on even the lowest grade GPUs. And that was our foundational layer of really where we started with Lumion View. And where we ended up with a plugin that lives directly within your CAD and BIM tools, is LiveSync, so every decision you make is kind of connected to it. It's fully ray traced to provide you that Lumion style quality, but just in a condensed manner, and really kind of just sets up as a good baseline of where we wanted to work to. And then from on top of that, we started building a little bit more. So when we take this concept and we build in a little bit, or dig in a little bit deeper, we'll go back to the visual communication thing we spoke about earlier. BIM and CAD tools are for data, and limit the tools needed for visual communication. And whenever I talk about this, as the image may give it away, one of the core things that we look at are the kind of diagrams. This is the part of the workflow that we feel very are very important to you, because the way that you guys use diagrams, I remember being back in uni and you did natural ventilation diagrams, you did circulation diagrams. All of these things were diagrams to explain how spaces work. They weren't the photoreal things. They were for sign off on design and look and feel. But the diagrams are something that are really important to you. And the tools that you guys have today, the CAD and BIM tools, as great as they are for modeling and detail and data, they're not the best for communication. They lack that visual touch, and it really limits what you have. So if you imagine that there was this tool embedded in these workflows that were really focused on helping you create high quality dynamic diagrams and conceptualized images, this is what Lumion View is really doubling down on. And so what I want to do is just dive into a couple of core areas of where we've just started this journey, and again, paint a little bit of a picture of where we're going. Starting with, here's some features. As you see on the right-hand side, you'll see the Lumion View layout. There's 3 buttons. There's the environment, there's the conceptual styles, and then there's the render outputs. But one of the things we thought was really important was controlling this solid fill backdrop. It's not about capturing realistic skies and diagrams. It's about setting a very clear background so you can help your building stand out, so you can help your diagram stand out, your design intent. And then on top of that, being able to jump between very quick, very easy conceptual styles. Some of them are pre-programmed into the application, so you can just use our presets, but we also provide you tools in case you want to create your own ones and customize your own ones in your own unique ways. And again, these are literally a couple of clicks away in each application. And what's really great about these tools is that they're always linked directly to your models. So you don't have to leave the application. You don't have to export anything out. If you update a wall, if you rotate the camera, that then remains up to date. And the last one is, because we're connected to your BIM and CAD tools, we like to make sure that we're connected to your Sun Study tools, but at the same point, you can disconnect that and actually have full custom control in each individual view directly within Lumion View itself. So that's one thing that we kind of focus on, the diagrammatical side. But we do also know that there are some basic visual needs that we all have. That yes, the professional tools are great, but maybe we just need to get out that slightly higher quality render. And so we really focus on conceptualization renders within Lumion View. And for that, we really kind of slimmed this back. We didn't want to create a Lumion Lite. We didn't want to create a kind of stripped down version of Lumion Pro. Instead, we really doubled down on where you guys work is the CAD and the BIM tools. So let's keep you there. So one of the things that we do is we do material enhancement with PBR materials. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means we did explore the idea of bringing in your own PBR materials into Lumion View, but SketchUp already has them, ArchiCAD has them, Revit now has them. So let's get you sticking in your CAD tool using their PBR workflows, but we will visualize that in a fully ray traced environment. So we enhance the PBR materials that are there and even provide a couple of extra settings of the PBR materials that your CAD and BIM tools not provide. You can add lights. This is a really heavily sought after one for a lot of people. Again, you don't create Lumion lights. That would disconnect the point of keeping you working within the CAD and BIM tools. So you add lights directly within SketchUp, within Revit, within ArchiCAD. And again, we visualize that in a fully ray traced environment in order to help you convey those early design decisions. And then export up to 4K, leveraging AI upscale technology, or even upload into Lumion Cloud, which we'll get to later on. So you can actually quickly create those images. But I have to share that one of my favorite features of Lumion View today is, because we're so focused on this diagrammatic, quick output, one of the things we did was just by pressing Control C on any given view at any given point, we'll just take a snapshot. So you can quickly paste it in an email, paste it in InDesign, paste it in one of these other applications, and just get it out of the application as quick as possible. So you don't always need to do that fully hyper-realistic or hyper-rendered 4K image. And so that's Lumion View. That's the first step in our visual communication journey, focusing more on this conceptualization side, this diagrammatic side. It's also our first integration into Mac. So if there's any Mac lovers out there, and there's a lot of them and growing, this is our first tool which is entered into the Mac space. We have it in SketchUp, we've got Revit, and there's a lot more to come. ArchiCAD's just launched and there's an early access I would love to get you guys all in on if you're using ArchiCAD. But that is the story of Lumion View. Now, let's jump on. Lumion Pro. So Lumion Pro has been around for, I think, the best part of 12 to 15 years now. So it's been around for a long while. In fact, Lumion Pro was one of the first tools on the market to really democratize visualization for architects. Back in the day, whenever there was V-Ray, I was a V-Ray user whenever I was in university. It was great, but it was very complex. And Lumion Pro really looked to challenge that and change that. And it was amazing to see the sort of adoption of this tool and spread without the industry. And you know what, as a product manager, it's even amazing to see the amount of competition that has followed Lumion Pro into this space. D5 coming out in the last few years, Twinmotion, even Envision, a very late tool. These are all real validation that visuals are important to what it is you guys do. And it's really great to see. And so what I'll talk about a little bit in this section is just, what it is we're doing over here, because some of the things that kind of set these different tools about, is really just the workflow. They're the way that you access these tools, they're the focus of the tools, all of them are kind of trying to be as easy to use as possible. So let's jump into a little bit more about what Lumion Pro is doing. So first off, it is about visual storytelling. So we take a quick zoom out back to our core message. Visual communication is important, and View is really handling that, really fast, iterative, fully connected to your BIM CAD tools. Whereas Pro takes this approach where it's about conveying atmosphere, mood, design, context. This is what the visual communication is with Pro. And what's really important about Pro is it's really focused on this journey of the design. We understand that you don't go from, concept to final render in an instance. I know AI does have those functionalities, but that's not how design works. Design does work that there's ideas, there's massing, it's collaborative, you evolve on it. And so that ability to have a tool that really works with you throughout this storyline of how a project evolves is something that we natively build into the tool. And it's really about bringing your client and your customers along on this journey, giving them that quick chance of changing or evolving the design, all the way up to kind of bringing them to this final output of, a perfect visualization. And it's really funny. I had a developer friend a while back who he mentioned that old proverb, an image speaks 1,000 words, and his version of it was that good image can sell 1,000 apartments, and a very developer-y thing to say, but it really hit home of just the power of these really strong photorealistic visualizations can get to and what impact they can have, and that's where we want to help our customers get to. So there's three core areas we'll jump into today. There's the things that we're really passionate about. Is the ease of use. We'll talk a little bit about how Lumion does this. Optioneering. I'm not sure that's actually a word. Disney kind of trademarked the Imagineering, so I'm going to stick with the optioneering. And the last one was customization and just how we deliver that. So let's start with some ease of use. So first of all, again, the core starting point for what we believe is that your workflows start and end in the CAD tool. And so we have LiveSync. It's our homegrown tool. It's been in the market. It connects up to 9 or more BIM and CAD tools. It has its LiveSync capabilities. And that is really what we want you guys to be using whenever you're kind of crafting your stories, to make sure that Lumion is always up to date. How is this different to Lumion View? Well, the first part is that Lumion Pro is much more powerful. The graphic engine in it is much more powerful. The capabilities of it are much more powerful, but it doesn't stop the fact that we see the importance of still connecting back to that CAD tool. So that's one of the core things that we build in. And the next part is making sure that you have the right templates and example projects to build from. And so we work hard on churning our example projects, sharing our marketing examples that we've built, and creating templates based on customer feedback to make sure that you are able to get jump started on a project as soon as possible. Now, that can be done in a variety of ways, but again, we try to provide as many templates and example projects as possible so you can pick and choose the right elements from it. And lastly, we have templated styles, and these styles are curated effects that we have stacked on, and we'll talk about our effect stack in a second, that again are just there so you can go from model import to first image output in a matter of minutes. And then the customization and everything else, this is what follows. And that's really where the fun starts with the optioneering. You've imported your model, you've selected a template, and you've got a couple of base styles in here. Now let's continue building on this. And so we really focus on these quick turnaround tools for experimenting with your environment. We have these real skies that allow you to very quickly jump between different sky styles that automatically update and change your entire environment in a split second. And then the uniqueness of the effect stack. Now, this was originally designed, I think, very similar to how we worked, maybe more so in Photoshop back in the day, where we have this layered effect stack where depending on the layers that you add and even the order that you add them, you can really custom create these unique views and styles, which are really focused around your project or even focused around your firm. And what's really exciting about the effect stacks is that you can save them, you can share them. In fact, we have this active community who share their effect stacks on different projects. And this is part of what our templates provide. You can take effect stacks from there and you can actually apply them in your projects. So the effect stacks is like the Lumion visual language and really allows that kind of detailed connection of how you connect and sell that perfect image. And then lastly, this is always a hot topic, especially with the given competition in the area. We do connect to GIS tools, OpenStreetMaps and satellite maps. So even if our templates aren't what you want and you want to use contextual real surroundings, we build that basin. And yes, we've heard of the Google Maps integration in with Cesium, and we're very aware of it, and it is definitely on the roadmap. We believe that GIS and that contextual environment is super important to everyone. So it's part of what is natively built into that optioneering style. And then, of course, like any good design, how you manage that and how you create these views, it's not about one view or one type. It's about using our interactive layer system to either craft a story, or use different views with certain things turned on and off. And then lastly, in our optioneering, we also realize there are different ways that we want to communicate different things. So videos, pictures, panoramics, all of these are slightly different and require unique control. And so we provide 3 different modes that allow a lot more detail, different effect stack integration, different effects that really allow that customization. So optioneering is there, again, questionable as a word, but you get the principle. We want you guys, exploring the what ifs per hour. We want to make you guys feel empowered that if you need to change something or experiment with something, you can do so without breaking it. That is why Lumion is here. And then finally, when we're talking about atmosphere and mood being captured in these things, the most important part about that is the customization. Because context can make or break an image. It's the thing that helps clients, it helps consumers or customers feel at ease or even, dare I say, at home in their models. And so the type of furniture you use, the type of plants that you use, these are critical in setting you up for success in that visual communication style. And so we have our very in-depth material library, we've got over 2,000 presets that we provide, and we allow, all these different mapping types in order to sort of build up and sort of integrate and create those kind of higher levels of detail. We provide, and we also provide you the ability to import your own. We'll talk about this a little bit later on, and you'll see why in a sec. The other part is obviously our ever-growing content library, again, very similar to what you see in the market with others. Again, we have long had sort of the kind of hallmark on the largest, but I think where we continue to grow is kind of curating it around different architectural needs, different audience needs, be it landscape, interiors, or even exterior architects. And we try and make discoverability and placement of those assets as easy as possible. And that's really Lumion Pro. Lumion Pro is really focused on that kind of very quick scene generation, the what ifs per hour, the optioneering, however you want to describe it. And where we will continue going in the future is really trying to find ways to increase the speed of creation. We want you to spend more time designing. And we understand that scene building in Lumion, that's less about designing and more about communication. So the more time that we can help you create fully 3D interactive real-time scenes, we figure the more time that you can spend in the design applications, working that out, and then integrating that into the final click. So we've got View, focused on that early style conceptual diagramming. We've got Pro, which is maybe more focused on the kind of photorealistic side, and working through the design stages to convey design intent, or even get sign off on design. And then finally, with the last section that we could talk about today, is really focused around Lumion Cloud. Ooh. Now, Lumion Cloud is the newest member of the Lumion family. And I realize it may also be on YouTube and could be viewed at any point, so I should really put this into perspective. So if someone's watching in 6 months' time, Lumion Cloud was released, I think, in August. So we're a couple of months in. It's currently in its beta, and it is available right now for everyone for free to experiment and play around with and try. It's free for all Lumion customers. And again, talking about the history of where Lumion Cloud came from, if we go all the way back to our problems around visual communication, one of the things that we saw as a problem with current tools was isolation. And if we go all the way to kind of imagine, how architectural projects work, I want to use the NASA analogy. NASA long-standing have this word that they use called the moonshot, which explains that the accumulation of thousands of engineers and researchers working, they were able to put a man on the moon. Well, the thing that always fascinated me within architecture is the fact that you look at these projects, both big and small, they're not a single person job. They're not a one person design and build, unless it's a hobby project of yours, and you're mixing the bricks and mortar yourself. And if you are, hats off to you. But in architecture, every project is a moonshot. Every project is the combined work and feedback of, sub-consultants, engineers, contractors, clients, investors, and even public in consultations. And so where we really wanted to focus Lumion Cloud was around this context of visual collaboration. And this was really collaboration, not focused so much maybe on the design side, because we realize, again, that there are great tools inbuilt into SketchUp with Trimble Connect and ArchiCAD have BIM Cloud. This is really focused on the visual pipeline and that visual communication and collaboration. So how do we do that? And what does this look like? I can give you a little bit of a taste into Lumion Cloud, but again, bear in mind, it's early days. And so I'll talk a little bit about the roadmap and where we're going as well. First of all, visual collaboration, it's really about bringing in and discovering the tools that you guys feel you need whenever you are creating your images. Because what we heard a lot is that when you export images out of Lumion, out of Twinmotion, out of D5, you bang it in an email and it gets sent to the client, or you put it on G Drive and you share that link with the client and they send, the old red pen markup of death back and use that and you go iteratively. And we saw that as being a very we'll call it disruptive workflow. And so with Lumion Cloud, we really started to build on what were the kind of base tools required for collaboration. And we really wanted to kind of look at turning both the 2D actually, and even the 3D as we move forward into the kind of 3D aspect on the web, into really seamless visual communication processes. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through a very quick 5-step walkthrough of the types of things you can do within Lumion Cloud. And then we'll talk about future and what to expect for the end of the year and moving forward. So the first one is upload your images. So directly within the applications themselves, in the latest versions of Lumion, you will be able to automatically upload images, videos, panoramics directly onto the web that you can then view and again add your own comments and narrative into. But what's also very unique about Lumion Cloud is we also just give you the ability to upload any media from any location. So that basically means, Lumion Cloud, we also see as a tool for the Enscape users, the Twinmotion users who maybe don't have that visual communication or collaboration tool. You can upload media from wherever you want. You can upload PDFs, you can upload images, you can upload MP3s. And I think in the next few months, you'll see you'll be able to upload even 3D models and objects. So the upload process is about you creating and being able to upload what you need to communicate about. And we're trying to make sure there's very limitless barriers on what that looks like. But the next part is probably the most important part for collaboration, is bringing people together and actually sharing your content with people. And this is where the sharing and collaborating comes from. So you will be able to share, again, both a public link or a private link with just individual people with the right email addresses to make it more secure. And those users will be able to view the content, on their phones, on their private jets, whenever they're flying over the ocean. Don't know what sort of clients you guys have, but they're the private jet kind. But it was just a way of taking your content from Lumion and giving a very quick and easy way to share that with anyone, anywhere. And then really opening up these collaboration tools or annotation tools that work differently depending on the medium. So in images, you can do markups, you can add revision cloud, you can draw, you can scale in videos, you can choose the exact frame or exact frame segment of a video that comments are supposed to be in panoramics. Again, when you add a comment in, it stays in that 3D space. But we've allowed that for any of your collaborators, and you choose the roles of the collaborators, whether they're viewers or collaborators or approvers. And there's a whole new role process that really give you more control over what people are allowed to do in there. But comments are not just comments. Comments can be brought and used with attachments. So if they have, oh, not like this, more like this, or, oh, can you swap this material out? Again, it was really building that base level of just allowing more flexibility around the comments within your work. And then as the project evolves and changes, the ability to keep on track of those changes is also really important that we hear. The old lost email chains or having to scroll 18 pages to the bottom of something to find out what comment or what version something is, we've really tried to address with this version control. So as images change, you are easily able to compare, original versions to end versions or version 1 against version 2, and really see whether or not those designs or comments have been addressed. So both a great client tool, but also a great management tool for yourself. And finally, whenever we talk about management, really talking about more of a project management tool. So this isn't about creating another G drive. This isn't about creating another tool where it's just a repository of folders. No, we actually looked at building actually some basic Kanban board functionality that allows you to set different work stages depending on the work and depending on the content that you're importing and adding into your projects. So the two things that we really focused on here was creating a distinction between the renders and projects. You can create a project around any new project that you work on. And within that project, you can invite clients. And within that project, you have these work stages from the to-do, the in progress, the ready for review, and the approve. And depending on the role allocation of your clients or your contractors or your engineers or even your colleagues, they will get notifications whenever things enter into their bucket. And so you get more control over what images at what stage, whether it needs to go back for another review. It's had the comments, but ultimately the goal is, guys, to get you to the approved stage faster. And this is where we are trying to approach the collaboration side of the visual communication. So as I said, we're in our beta. We're just getting started here. I think where we are going to continue to evolve Lumion Cloud and where we're going to go into is, really stay deeply in tune with what your needs are around the visual collaboration. And, there are lots of different areas that we're looking at from, introducing more post-processing on the cloud. So, allowing you to make changes or create edits directly within the cloud itself, creating tools or more kind of custom paint tools so the client can have more of an input and suggestion around the optioneering that you see within Lumion Pro. But the other great thing that we don't talk about or haven't talked about much with cloud right now is the flexibility that cloud will bring us in the future in terms of adding in other things, around the ability to upload content to it. So having specialized packs or regional packs deployed on Lumion Cloud for all users are there. And the ability to sort of have specialist, subtools around, presentations or automatically create reports, or even go all the way into more project management around upload your floor plans and use this as a drop for the 2D side of your projects. So there's a lot of great directions that Lumion Cloud will go in. As I said at the beginning, this is free for everyone, just requires a Lumion account, and I think you get X amount of gigabytes and project allowance that you can go on and start uploading and experimenting with. And we're only going to be building on it towards the end of the year, which I'll cover in the last section of our presentation today. So that's it. I hope that's not been too wordy or too long, but our ecosystem has really evolved from this state into this new amazing horizon of development where there's new tracks focused on different use cases, different audiences, different parts in the process, but all of it, I would say the most important part is integrated really deeply into where it is that you guys work. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about is two things. We'll cover the last one in a second, is how these work together. So it's often asked about, how does Lumion View and Lumion Pro and Lumion Cloud all stay connected? We are so focused on this integration into where that you work. We don't create a Lumion file type that interacts between the different applications. In fact, when you're in Lumion View and you change or you add lights or you change the PBR material settings or you add styles, we actually write that data directly back into your CAD and SketchUp files. Now, why do we do that? Well, we do that because, God, we don't need any more export this file type and share it with someone else. What it means is that anyone in the organization who has these tools, who has Lumion View, can open it up and continue and see that work that you've already put in. But the other more magical part is because it's written into that SketchUp file or that Revit file, if a user who has Lumion Pro suddenly connects to it, those lights, those materials, those settings automatically transfer into Lumion Pro. So we've connected our tools, not through a disruptive file format, but actually just very innately tied into the application itself. And then Lumion Cloud syncs directly and lives directly within Lumion Pro and Lumion View, which means you can go from Revit to cloud within 3 clicks. So you can start sharing ideas faster than ever. And this is what we mean by deeply integrated into how you work. So we'll continue this evolution, and it's going to be really good fun. But the second thing, which I realized that we hadn't really discussed, which I thought we best discuss today, because it wouldn't be a presentation in 2025 if AI wasn't talked about in some shape or form. I purposely haven't mentioned it or tried not to mention it in the rest of the presentation, mostly because of death by AI, which AI fatigue, which I think some of us are feeling a little bit, and also because we are a strong believer that AI is going to fundamentally change the way that we all work within the industry, and maybe it already has. We've been to lots of events where we hear people talking about how AI is coming in to help with the kind of documentation or the brief setting or even the specifications part, and we're even starting to see it in the visual sense. But what we really didn't want to do in this presentation today is basically slap you with a lot of gimmicks of just slapping AI onto absolutely everything and everywhere to try and help show how our application is on the cutting, bleeding edge. Instead, we wanted to talk about workflow. And we're going to continue talking about workflow now and exactly into how Lumion is implementing AI across its product ecosystem. And really the first way that we're doing this is that we're really focused on figuring out where are the time-consuming and problematic parts of your workflow. So what are the things that take you guys time? Because again, if design is really the focus of what you guys do, and design is ultimately what's important, and we want to get you back into that design process as quick as possible, really our job with AI is figuring out how to save time and how to make those workflows more enhanced. So we're here to increase the pace of your creation and certainly not to replace it. And it may be a hot take for 2025, but these image generators and the stable diffusion tools, I actually do worry that there's a large part of them which are probably more problematic and potentially damaging around this idea of visual communication, around this misunderstanding, where accuracy or quality can actually impact what people think about something long before. So our AI is probably, we're investing in architectural intelligence. It's not trademarked yet, but that's where we're going. So let's talk about a couple of our AI tools. The first one, we heard that you guys were spending way too long on rendering, which is just not where you guys want to be. You guys want to be more in the iterative side. You want to be in the optioneering part. You want to be in the design side. So we've built an AI upscaler, not just directly into Lumion Pro, but very soon it will be released inside Lumion Cloud for really any Lumion Cloud user to use, which basically means anyone who wants to create an account. And the goal of this is to make sure that you can export out low settings or lower quality settings out of Lumion products that will render faster, and then throw that into an AI engine and spit out a 4K, 8K, 16K image in mere minutes compared to the long time it would usually take these applications. And so that time save, we want to go directly back into the applications. And Lumion's strategy here is, AI is such a volatile industry right now where the models change 2 seconds, companies change 2 seconds. There's a new Gemini this or new Genie this. So we're really staying on top of integrating in with these third-party tools. So the tools that we use are not Lumion grown. They're integrated in with the industry standard and industry finest, in order to make sure that when that model evolves and changes, you guys will automatically get that benefit. So upscaling is one of the parts, but the other one, which usually gets some form of applaud and cheer, is the AI PBR material generator. Because in our poll that we did with our customers on what is the second most time-consuming part within Lumion Pro, it was the material creation part. Because to get to that fidelity and to get to that quality really requires you to have more than just an albedo or the kind of JPEG image. It needs you to have those maps. And so we've created an AI PBR material generator, again, built into Lumion Cloud, so you can integrate that and have your whole library of your own assets that you can share and integrate in with View and Cloud and the rest of your applications. So again, time saving. There's a whole host of other ones that we are integrating in because, again, we're going in the strategy of integrating third party through APIs. But at all point, what we're looking to do is not hit you with 50 different types for different AI tools for different tools or products. We want the same AI layer, but to integrate across our product ecosystem. Why? Because we want the language to be the same. We want the benefits to be the same no matter where it is you're working. So this is our AI strategy. Stay tuned for a lot more. Like I said, this is us just getting started. And we are excited to go on this journey, but ultimately to wrap this whole thing back into this visual communication arc, you know, design is a process. And visual communication is very much what I would call a human-driven experience. Now, that's nothing against our AI overlords. Sam Altman hopefully won't have me shot, or and I'm not trying to be derogatory against the clankers or anything. But in essence, we know that communication is so refined down to the art of what you guys learn and how you do it, that we're around building tools that help you with that, not look to replace it. And that's it. We're kind of at our 43. I was trying to target 45 minute. Feel free to throw some questions in while I'm wrapping up, and we can answer some of them if you've got those questions. I would say that our ultimate goal is to work alongside the CAD vendors to provide those visual tools across our ecosystem, not to duplicate, not to replicate. And lastly, my sign off is, if you have liked what you've seen and and you're an ArchiCAD user, we actually have just started our ArchiCAD early access, which allows anyone to get access to it for free in ArchiCAD and take it for a little spin. I don't know if you guys are ArchiCAD users, but I thought I'd slap the QR code up there. And yeah, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube 6 months later and it's already out, then I should probably end on this slide as a kind of cover up. So, but thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. I hope it's been informative, and I am here to answer any questions, comments, concerns, or things. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Kelsey.
All right, great. And thank you, David. That was a wonderful presentation, a great overview. I'm sure I speak for all of our attendees today when I say that they learned a whole lot. And I think that, a lot of the connections and the workflow impact makes Lumion such a valuable, all three parts make Lumion such a valuable tool. So let me just see. I think the only question I see right now, I believe we've already pretty much touched on, which was kind of the integration of the AI post-production for the cloud.
Yes.
So if anybody else has any questions, now is the time to put them in the chat. We would definitely welcome any and all. This is open floor. I am going to put our email address in so that if you think of questions after the fact, you will be able to reach out to our team. Even if you're interested in looking at a quote for pricing, and getting started. And we will share the recording once it is ready to go with everybody that attended today. So, David, we have a few more minutes. Is there anything else that you had saved, thinking that you wanted to touch on and didn't? Any other exciting things? You sent a little bit of the roadmap with the cloud, but if there's anything else in the works, please share.
No, I'll, just while Stefan's obviously asked the question, and it's a really interesting one, and it is one of the tools we're really focused on. We just had our a big meeting with some customers and actually talked about post-processing in the cloud, and AI plays a huge part in that. The in-painter, the enhancer, and all of these are absolutely on the cards. The place for the post-processing AI tools in the cloud that we're most interested in, and always curious on customers' interactions with this, was looking at post-processing AI tools in the cloud, such as in-painter, not just for architects, not just for you guys as the tool users, but is there value of post-processing or in-painters for the clients to use? And whether or not that is an interesting. So there's so many different strands that we can go in. You imagine a client's come in and he's trying to convey something in Word format, but you just can't quite get it across. What if they had an in-painter that said, oh, what if you could just change it for this tree type, or change this, or change this, and there's a review done, which is we'll call the client review. So there's really lots of different avenues, and we are exploring them. So I just wanted to touch on Stefan's question there, because I felt we could go in a little bit deeper.
Thank you.
Yeah. GIS integration. I knew this was good.
Go for it. You saw the question before I got to it.
I was surprised this question didn't come up. But yes, I am very aware of our amazing competitors out there, you know, having both come from a background of working with one and seeing the amazing things they do, and also seeing whether or not the things that they're doing ultimately has value to you guys. You know, we're not really in the market for chasing applications or feature chasing. You know, they've done this, so we'll do this. But Cesium and Google Tiles are a really strong one. About, I think it was a couple of years back, our team actually did a Cesium test back whenever Cesium first came out and built a POC for integration into Lumion. At the time, Cesium only really had OpenStreetMaps loaded into it, so we didn't see much of a value now. But now that Google Tiles have come back in, it's definitely something that we've opened and cracked open that POC to see whether or not this kind of adds huge amounts of value into it. So yes, I would say it is currently going through the exploration phase, but thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it, Mark.
All right. Any other questions? Please ask now.
And guys, don't be bold. You know, the whole like, oh, well, this company's doing this. What are you doing? We get that all the time, and you know, we may have a slightly different approach on it, but I'm here to kind of answer those types of questions and even harsh truths. So please, you know, now or using the email, you know, Kelsey and the team can reach out to me at any point for follow-ups as well. So I'm always here to kind of help provide a little bit more clarification.
Absolutely. So we'll give it just another minute. If nothing comes in, we will wrap up a few minutes early. But again, David, thank you very much for joining us today. And, we're going to look forward to, I'm sure, many more of these, especially with the changes that come faster than we can keep up half the time. But it's always exciting.
It is. It's a really fast-moving industry. And again, I said at the beginning, it's so amazing to see the variety of visual tools out there, you know, from the Enscapes, Coronas, the Vantage, the Visions, the D5s. All it tells us is that visualizations are important. So we're super excited to be on this journey. And again, keep up with the evolving needs of how you guys work. So um, I'm sure a year's time we're going to do this presentation again, and we'll be like, well, this was a year ago, and now look at us, we're even bigger, and we got all of this. And so it's the state of change in just a year, even just for Lumion, is insane, and I'm really excited to see what it's going to be in another year.
Oh, and we're excited to now be on board with you guys and watch that journey. So, well, oh wait, we just had one last one come in here. I may have missed it, so I apologize.
Ooh.
Any plans to integrate the kind of switch off, switch on variations within the cloud side of things?
I know what you're talking about. They have this 3D presenter mode, which is great. Two aspects of that question. Absolutely, yes, by the way. Right now, what we work with is mostly just the 2D image side. So again, if you have different image or even video variations with different variations within them, you can layer them and kind of jump between them. But on a 3D side, you know, this is where our next evolution is. This is where we're looking at, yes, taking 3D models from Lumion View into the cloud and then building a more, what's the right word, storytelling tools around how you would interact with that. And this is what Twinmotion does amazingly well. They use a tool called pixel streaming, which is a phenomenal way of, you know, sharing stuff, but does require slightly higher bandwidth in order to get a good experience. But we really love that visual storytelling aspect of wanting to show different variations in real time and not just statically. So I would say, again, for cloud, this is where we're going and this is what we're looking at. So again, great catch, great question.
Yeah, thank you, Quentin. All right. You're welcome. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and I think call it for today. So thank you everybody for joining us. Please look forward, follow ArchVision for many, many more of these. And David, thank you again.
Great to be here and great to speak to you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.